Day 25, 2/3 of the way there. You're looking great. I can just know it and feel it. Just keep exercising, keep breathing, keep learning everything you can. You're doing it. Keep the work up.
Alrighty, it is the question of the day, and today's question comes to us from Gene Harrison. Gene says, if your doctor has ordered 24/7 oxygen, but your stats are at 98 when sitting, can you take a break for the O2 but closely monitor? Okay, so first of all, you said stats, okay? It's usually we talk about SATs, okay? And that is for oxygen saturation, which is a stat. So that's why it gets confusing for people. So oxygen saturation, or O2 sat, is one of the statistics or stats that we look at, okay? Now, enough nitpicking, on to your question. So here's the thing. If your oxygen saturation is 98% while sitting, I really don't know why you would be on oxygen. I'm not saying there's absolutely no indication on earth that I may have never heard of. I'm just saying I don't know what it is, okay? What I tell people all the time is to rely on your instruments. Oxygen saturation is not always something that you will feel. So in other words, you can feel perfectly fine and have a low oxygen saturation. Likewise, you can have a high oxygen saturation and feel very short of breath, okay? So it's important that you rely on your instruments. Now, again, I'm not sure why your doctor would want you to be wearing oxygen if your saturation is 98%, which is on the tippy top end of normal. Okay, so that's like you're getting an A+ in the class or an A in the class, and your mom wants you to get tutored for the other 2%, okay? I don't see it, but I would never say that you shouldn't do something that your doctor tells you to do, because I don't know your situation. But the best description that I've heard about when you should and shouldn't use oxygen saturation came from Dr. Norma Braun, MD, okay, one of the giants of medicine here in New York City. And she described it like this. If the room gets a little bit chilly, then you put on a sweater. If you start to warm up and the room warms up, or you don't feel cold anymore, you take the sweater off. So my feeling would be like, A, of course, you don't need oxygen if your oxygen is at 98%. And I would also think that you can take a break and closely monitor. And I also suspect that the case would be that you're generally pretty stable and that you don't have to monitor it that closely once you pick up on the general trend. Again, not my place to say, okay? I would let your doctor know that my saturation is 98% and ask them, why am I on oxygen if my saturation is 98%? The other thing I would suggest is maybe track your numbers a little bit over time so that you can show your doctor these numbers and say, hey, at 3 o'clock I was at 98%, at 4 o'clock I was at 97%, at 5 o'clock I was at 98%, and ask your doctor this question. Say, being that my saturation is high, would it be okay for me to take a break from the oxygen? Would it be okay for me to take a break from the oxygen as long as I am monitoring my saturation periodically? And what would be the lowest saturation that would be okay? And when should I consider going back on the oxygen? My opinion, okay, based on my work with many patients. So summary, I think it's okay. You still have to ask your doctor. I think it's okay. You still have to ask your doctor. And my bet is that maybe your doctor doesn't know that your sats are so high when you're sitting and resting or not being very exertive. So absolutely, it's a supply and demand issue. And we expect that when you exert yourself, your sats may decline if they are going to decline, and that would be the time when you either use or increase the amount of oxygen. Okay, hope that helps. Have a great day, everybody.